Hey everyone, sorry, I always forget to click the microphone button when I start these things. This is what you like to call a technical problem that's between the computer and the seat, if that makes any sense. Yeah, anyway, so I was just saying that you guys should be... oh my goodness, sound issues. Sirens, that's what I get for living in New York. You guys should be hearing me over on YouTube, on Facebook, number one, the Benny Lewis Facebook page, number two, the Fluent in 3 Months page. You should be seeing me on other places like Twitch and Beam and Hitbox and Periscope. And if you're watching this after the fact, you will always catch me immediately and be able to ask one of the first questions if you click the notifications bell. Usually it's a bell icon, sometimes it's in your settings. So make sure my profile gets you notifications and you can be one of the first people who I tend to have more time to chat with. I'm only going to do this for about 20 minutes or a half hour today, so the first questions are the ones that I tend to get through a lot easier. So, when we started off, we had Geografia y más, that's the username. Say hola and salut, a nice multilingual hello from me there. We have Castle by a Stream saying hello. We have Estevan Costa saying hi. Greetings from Brazil. Right back at you. We have LWC. Hey there, LWC. And we have... Elise from Florida. Nice selection of people today. Estevan, he asks me how languages, what languages am I learning nowadays? He loves my videos. Very, very kind of you to say that. So, languages I'm learning these days, because last year was so crazy, man, it's like the apocalypse here in New York with these sirens. Because last year was so crazy with the book writing, my focus I've been trying to get back into just reactivating my languages for quite a while because of the backlog of traveling and all that. So this year my focus is to up my languages a notch. For instance, I tried to do some online gaming. Some of you might have been present for that a few weeks ago. And when I did it you'll see a video on my YouTube channel that I compressed the very long stream into just 5 minutes. But when I switched it to Spanish and French, it was pretty good. I was happy with that. But when I did it in German, I felt way less confident than I did the last time I used German. So I feel like my German, I definitely need to push that up a notch. And then I'll have a few travels this year, and I might learn languages based off that. You'll see me announce that when that comes. Brianna asks me, Salut, quoi de neuf, Benny? Ça va, comme je viens de dire, je suis un peu occupé en ces jours, mais ça va bien. Le week-end commence dans quelques heures après cette vidéo. J'ai besoin de travailler encore un peu. Il est toujours 1h20 ici, donc je n'ai pas fini ma journée de boulot. So that's my quick update for you in French. So James had a question. Why James, by the way, you guys will see, is the moderator, so he's going to be helping me arrange all these questions and sharing the best ones with me if in case I miss them. And James says, why can I understand it when people talk to me in German, but I can't understand a movie or TV in the same way? So this is a very good question, which I didn't ask him to write this in advance. This is a genuine question from James. And he, okay, so essentially what I find is there's two things about interacting with people versus watching TV. The first is that it's relevant to you. So the kind of conversations that you're going to be having with somebody, if they're face-to-face with you, are going to be about topical things. So they're going to be using the kind of vocabulary that you're more familiar with. You might be talking about your city. You might be talking about a TV show or sports or things that you know and the other person also happens to know. So that's the one thing, is the topic is likely to be more relevant. And then if it is not as relevant, then you have control. So you're a contributor. You are changing you're dynamically changing the conversation as it happens. So if it gets more difficult, they can see you struggle. They can adapt to that and use simpler words. People tend to hear our accents when we speak another language and make slight adjustments. Ideally, they would make those adjustments a little bit less with time, but that's going to happen when you have live interactions with people. They may not speak to you exactly the same way they would a native speaker, depending, of course, on the person and the language. So the other thing, though, the other reason that TV tends to be harder to follow is because you don't have that control over it. You are not controlling the conversation. You can't slow it down. You can use software or whatever to slow it down. But you generally, if it's playing at natural speed, they're going to be talking about these advanced topics that don't involve you. And they don't take you into consideration to slow down for your benefit, to use simpler words. So you could still have very complex conversations. You could be a very high level in the language. But if something that you're watching on TV, it's made specifically for native speakers, so it might use slang, it might use really quirky expressions that would push you a lot more, like really test you and see if you're C level in the language. Whereas I find a lot of conversations I would have with people in person is... Oh, sorry. I noticed I'm scrolling up and down here in the stream. Yeah. A lot of the kinds of conversations that I'd have with people in person tend to actually, they tend to be adjusted for my benefit. And even if I'm very good in the language, they will still know to not use particular things. Okay? So, let's see. Hope that answers that question. Next, we have Michael Ashley, who, we had Yassine, who said, hey. Michael says, what things do you do to get from intermediate to advanced? I get this question a few times. I would say that you need to make your conversations more complex. So if you get on italki, you find yourself a teacher, don't make it about, or if you're in the country, don't make your conversations with native speakers to be about how are you doing, and just kind of casually chatting with them. You need to have a very specific goal in the language, that you're trying to push yourself up a notch and you're trying to have complicated conversations. So I would go out of my way with my teachers to have conversations about very complex topics. And then ideally, I would try to see if I can realistically sit a higher level exam. So see if you can find a C2 exam. And I just noticed Elise says, what are the levels the polyglots talk about? Very good question. Before I go back to the stream as they were coming up. Essentially, best way to think of it is like this. Language levels are split into 6 different levels based on the European Common Framework. So we have A, B, and C. A is beginner, B is intermediate, C is advanced. Those are the 3 big overlying areas of your capacity to use the language. And within them, you have 1 and 2. 1 is lower, 2 is upper. So if I'm a B2 level in the language, that means I'm an upper intermediate speaker. If I'm a C1 level, then I'm a lower advanced speaker. So those are the levels that kind of give you an idea. And when I want to go to advanced, usually, if depending on the language, if it's one of the European languages, they tend to follow that framework, and you can find exams that help test you and see if you're at that level, and teachers who can help you work with yourself with your level to get it up. Okay. A camera issue. Okay. And the sound here it comes. Okay. So LWC says, how do you maintain a language that you previously learned like French, and continue to learn a new language, like Mandarin. Okay? And don't worry, guys, I'm going to catch up with all your comments. I can see some comments coming in from Beam, which I'm testing out as well today. So hello to everybody over at Beam, another live streaming service that I can encourage people from as many places as I can to learn language. So how do I maintain a language and learn a new one? Essentially, my main point of advice when it comes to multiple languages is focus. So I would highly advise that you only ever learn one new language at a time. So if you wanted to learn Mandarin and you want to improve your French, then which is the priority right now? And if you decide you really, really want to learn Mandarin, then I would say focus just on Mandarin for the next 3 months, 6 months, year, whatever it is. And you accept that your French is going to maybe go down a bit. Now, ideally, you would study one language until you get to the B2 level. Lighting behind me to change a bit. You get to the B2 level in the language, based on what I was just talking about, upper intermediate, because I feel like that level is where you're a lot less likely to forget the language, and you can take a break from it that's extended, like 3 months, 6 months, or even a year, without losing it a lot. But if the first language you had learned, French, if that's at a weaker level, you're not going to be able to do that as easily. And when you come back to it, it's going to be harder to get back into it. So if your French is only like an A2 level, I would say stick to French, focus on that till it's at least B2, higher if you prefer. And then when you're confident it's good, it's solid, then take the break and go to Mandarin. And then generally what I would do is when I focus on the next language and I push it up and I get it to that solid B2 level, which I've not done with my Mandarin yet. So when I do get it at a solid B2 level, which I'll only be able to do through a very intensive learning process, then I can be in general maintenance mode. So that means I can devote 6 months or a year to not learning a new language, but to actually maintaining multiple languages. And that is a lot easier. It's a lot easier to maintain multiple languages than it is to learn multiple languages. So if that distinction makes sense, like I say this all the time, I don't advise people learn multiple languages. Learn one language, and then when that happens, you get up to a better level, and later on you can maintain languages. And maintaining them is a lot easier. You just switch between them as you would expect. You would do one language one day, or maybe do 2 hours in one language and 2 hours in another. It's okay to do that when you're at that higher level. And make the switch. You're not going to confuse yourself as much as you would otherwise. Okay, so hope that answers that question. So Elise says, I picked up the Polyglot project from the library. Are there other books you'd suggest I check out? Good question. And for that, just join me on Sunday. On Sunday at, let me see, I think it's 3 p.m. I said, 3 p.m. Eastern time. So if you get my email, you'll see the conversions on that, or you can look it up. I'm going to be showing some of my language books. So I might actually show you some of the language method books that I have here, other than my own, that might inspire you. So I hope that helps. Okay, so sorry again that my stream went off for a second. I need to close all my programs when I do this in future on my computer. Okay, so we have a question about culture and travel. Sorry, I won't get into that one today, because I'm going to try and keep it language learning related. And a question about New York. Again, I'm trying to keep these language related. Sorry, guys. So Cool Kez on Beam asked, what is this all about? So if you guys don't know, if you're just joining the stream, trying to figure out what's going on, my name is Benny Lewis, written down below. I run a site Fluent in 3 months, and I try to encourage people to learn languages. I only spoke English when I was 21, got into languages late in life, and I write a lot about it. I've written books, I've done tons of YouTube videos, and I'm trying to do these live streams to answer people's questions. So that's who I am, and I like to see people's varied questions, see how I can inspire them with issues that they're having so that they can really get it into their languages. So hope that answers that question. Let's see, people interacting with each other, which is great. Greetings from Long Island. You're not very far from me, Zach, so hello to you. And okay, so Kurzed over on YouTube says, "Hi Benny, I've been learning Swedish for a while now, but I struggle to find anyone to practice with. Have you experienced this problem? If so, do you have any advice?" It depends on where you live, Kurzed. If you're somewhere very far from Sweden, then that makes sense. And it's going to be difficult to specifically find Swedish people when you're... Cool Kez is hosting me. Thank you for that, Cool Kez. Appreciate that. People can host this video on certain channels. That's very kind of you. So if you're trying to find specific nationalities and you don't live in that country, what I would suggest is, like, if you want to meet up with them in person, try firstly couch surfing. If you search couch surfing for your city and people who speak that language, you might actually find someone who's a native speaker. It depends, because couch surfing, its popularity in certain cities isn't the same as what it used to be. But that's one option. Another is the app Hello Talk, which has a similar thing, that you search your city for people who speak specific languages, and then you can message them and try to meet up and do an exchange. Otherwise, as SpanFan MX, just type there, use italki. So this is a site that I always recommend, because that way you'll find the native speaker to just Skype with, because it doesn't matter about finding them. Now for Swedish, you might have to consider, rather than doing a free exchange, because Swedish people may not be as likely to learn your language if your language is English, because they may speak it already. So in that case, you might need to find somebody who can teach you as for paid lessons. So you have to decide if that's worth investing in. But yeah, I hope that advice works. Otherwise, if you live close to university, and it's in Europe, then see if there are any Swedish people on the Erasmus exchange program. Or in your local library, there might be a Swedish group that get together and maybe put a little notice up. You'd be surprised what you'd find in those kind of local things. Okay, so let's see. Greetings from Poland, says Piotr, and greetings right back to you. Cool Kez says, how does one remember Latin words better? Latin words specifically, I don't really talk so much about learning non-active languages, so to speak. If you're interested in learning Latin, I can't help you with that. If anyone here has any advice for learning Latin, then feel free to put it in the comments, and we'll see your answer. You know, if you see people's questions here in the side to me that you know the answer to, then feel free to share your thoughts. So Edu Calamber on Periscope says hola. So hola back to you. James has shared the European Common Framework stuff, so that we see that link up that people can click on. Giagich from Chicago says, Neil, hello, Giagich, Gias Murgich, August Kjemar Tatu. I gotta actually start making more of these videos. I'm gonna be making videos in Irish, actually, guys, because next month is St. Patrick's Day on the 17th, so I have a bunch of videos that I got planned to get back into sharing Irish. Of course, Irish is one of the languages I also need to get more practice in to improve my level too. Okay. Trasheral says, there are polyglots that say you could learn more languages at once. What are your thoughts on that? My thoughts on that would be that some people have got that ability. I'm not one of them, unfortunately. So there are people who are able to do 2 languages at the same time, and they have had success with that. Several people in the polyglot community can do that, and that's how they got to the large number of languages that they speak. In my case, I got to the number of languages I speak by just doing one at a time, and I feel like a lot of people might be like me in that if they focus, they'll get more benefit out of it. But of course, there are loads of people who, and everything I say is not written in stone. I don't believe necessarily that my advice is the best advice universally for every single person in the world. So experiment, you know, take what I'm saying, see if it jives with your learning style, and if you find somebody else's advice works better for you, then that's great. So I think that the way other polyglots learn is fantastic, and it's a good idea to see how different people learn and kind of test them out, experiment, and then find out what works best for you. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to do this for learning new vocabulary. I'm an A2 level in Spanish. Okay, learning new vocabulary, I would say two things for that. One is that you should get into using mnemonics. I found when I was in school when I was in school learning German, I did not acquire vocabulary very well because I memorized the list. So for that, use the website Memrise, MEMRISE.com, and it'll give you loads of inspiration. The other one for learning vocabulary is to use spaced repetition, and there are loads of apps for this, but the one I personally prefer is Anki, A-N-K-I, and they have lots of pre-made decks for Spanish, but I tend to actually make my own decks to study from. I'll be making a video at some stage about how I go through that process. So I hope that answers that question. Okay, how can you tell when you've hit a learning plateau versus not understanding anything anymore, if that makes sense? I don't think it would be a case of not understanding anything anymore. I think that's more of a confidence thing, or maybe if you're overworked or tired or something. Because if you had understood something and then later you don't, then there's something else happening there. But in terms of hitting a plateau, what I would say, you're at a plateau if you are working hard, you're genuinely doing things that previously had helped you progress, but you're not progressing. So that's the thing, the plateau means a lack of progress, even though you're trying. Now, if you're not really trying that hard and you have reached a level, but you're not really putting that much time into it, I wouldn't really call that a plateau. I would call that more, it's maybe a plateau in your learning method, in that you're not doing it as well as you could, but it's definitely not a plateau in your learning abilities, because that just means you need to get active. But if what you had been doing is not helping you make as big progress before, and that's how you're in your current plateau, then I would say you gotta start with a new learning process, some kind of a new technique. Okay. Now, what else? Can you recommend specific books? Again, I'm going to talk about books on Sunday. Do you have any tips on passing C1 or C2 exams in a relatively short time? No. I do not have tips on passing a C1 or C2 exam in a relatively short time. I would say the only way it'll work in a short time would be if you are living and breathing the language and doing whatever it takes to make it work. But even then, it's extraordinarily difficult. I would aim for a level below it, and then aim for C1 or C2 when you get to the B2 levels. Unless you have sat these exams before, and you're intimately familiar with them, shooting for C1 or C2 as your main goal is not as effective. I would aim for a lower goal first. If you're very experienced, then you can give yourself that big challenge. But generally, I wouldn't recommend that. Okay. So lots of people replying to what I was saying, which is great. Juan asked me what's the secret to learning declinations in German. It's a very specific question. Let's see, declinations. I would say just exposure. This question came up a couple of days ago for me. When it comes to complex grammar, the best way to learn it and internalize it is practice, and to make the mistakes that involve you not using it and getting corrected. So, find a good teacher or a good language exchange partner who is willing to correct you, and keep talking about maybe doing exercises that involve using these kind of things that you want to practice, whether it be declinations or subjunctive or whatever grammatical thing that you're thinking about. Try to get practice that involves you using that. And then if you find you're still not making any progress, then you might just need to do the grammar exercises. So it depends on you and your learning style. Okay, so let's see. So over on Facebook, we have a question. Oh, sorry guys, I haven't been seeing Facebook questions here. I know why that is. I'm really sorry to everybody over on Facebook. Should work now. Hold on. I have a little thing that I need to do with my comments here. There we go. Okay, sorry about that, Facebook people. You'll see your questions coming in now. So I got a question on Facebook. How would you attempt to solve the problem of the lack of retention of Irish in Ireland's school system? Very, very, very complicated to talk about how to solve school system problems. In general, if the question is lack of retention, I would say encouraging people to use it after school. So when I was in school, it was the end of when Irish language television, at the end of my school was when Irish language television started to come in. And if I had been encouraged to watch that TV, or if it had come out a little bit sooner, and I could have watched my, Saturday cartoons or whatever it is in Irish, or if I had been able to use it in more fun situations, or used it since I was into technology, used it on my computer, those kind of things that made it more relevant, then that would have kept me more into using the language and getting to know it. Whereas when I had learned it in school, it didn't feel as relevant. Whereas I've gotten into it later in life because of using it in more situations. So just going to do this for 5 more minutes, everybody. Sorry if I'm not getting to your questions. Make sure that you click the notifications option. That should be, if you're on an app for Facebook or YouTube, Twitch, Beam, Periscope, there should be an option on my profile to get notifications when I go live. So click that option, and when I do these spontaneously, because this one wasn't scheduled, you'll see it. Otherwise, I'm going to do another general Q&A tomorrow. I would have mentioned it in my email list, but otherwise it's going to be 10 a.m. Eastern time, so you can do a conversion on that. So yeah, just final questions that I can get to now in these last minutes. Let's see. Okay, we have Facebook. Okay, and another question from Facebook from someone who's usually too late to get his question answered, so I'm glad I'm seeing it now. How to think with weird syntax in German. Oh, no, sorry. I think that's the one essentially that I was just using. But, oh no, in terms of weird syntax, I actually did write about this in Language Hacking German. Is instead of imagining it as weird, I pictured it like Yoda speak. Like Yoda, you must speak. And I tried to have fun with it in that way, because if you think of it as weird, that's going to reinforce it in your mind, and that's not going to help you to learn it as effectively. Okay, so I hope that helps. Last couple of questions here on Facebook. We had another question from somebody with a Russian name. Sorry, I won't read the Cyrillic aloud. I haven't learned Cyrillic yet. Should you reach a certain level before attempting to have a Skype conversation with somebody? Absolutely not. I highly recommend you Skype somebody on day 1. Whenever, if you look on my YouTube channel, you'll see a video, Polish in 1 hour. I definitely did not master Polish in an hour. I didn't even get to basic conversational level. But what I did was I spent an hour cramming the absolute basics of the language and looking up in a dictionary things like, Ireland and travel, like basic vocabulary for talking about myself. And I put it in a little text note, like text file on my screen. And then I Skyped them. I didn't understand what my teacher was saying. So one of the phrases I learned was, could you write that down, please? And she would type it into the Skype window, and I'd copy and paste it to Google Translate. Google Translate is not wonderful by any means, but I used it as this kind of crutch in that very first conversation. It was not a very sophisticated conversation. You guys can all go and watch it. But the point I was trying to make was that you can have a conversation even if you have just started to learn the language. So that's what I would say. I would say keep that in mind for when you're learning your languages, that you really need to just speak it immediately. You will make mistakes. You will not know what to say. That's okay. All right. Okay. Then final questions. Got questions about particular series that I don't really have time to get into now. Okay. Nick says, did you say you were going to talk about good Spanish vocab books on Sunday? Oh, sorry if you missed that. No, on Sunday I'm going to talk about my my own personal language learning books. So I have a bunch of books here. It's not all the books I've ever used because I only moved into this place like slightly over a year ago, and I had traveled a lot and I had to sell my books while I traveled, because otherwise I would have accumulated a lot of them. But I'm going to go through some of my books here. It'll take me a while to get through my whole library, so I'll talk about like maybe 5 or 10 of the books like in the one session. And if you have general questions about language learning books, then I will talk to you about that on Sunday. But then tomorrow I will be able to tackle your questions again for general language learning questions if I didn't get to them today. If you're catching this just after the fact and you'd really like to ask your question, Jonathan says, please make more of these videos to observe your thought process as you discover a language. They're quite revealing. Yep, I will definitely be doing that, especially now that I've got this live video set up. I don't know if you guys have seen, there's a video on my YouTube channel where I shared myself learning the lyrics of the opera Carmen. So that was genuinely me seeing them for the first time and reading through them and trying to figure it out. So anytime I have those kind of study sessions that I think might work as a video, I'm going to share it. And anytime I might do like Skype sessions where I think it would work to share with people, I'm going to do that. So yeah, you guys will definitely see that. Make sure you follow along my videos to see those. So thanks for joining in today, everybody. Don't forget to subscribe and check out all my stuff. And yeah, I'll be doing videos in other languages for sure. Don't worry about that. Definitely have some specifically in other languages. And if you have any more questions, then feel free to pop back for the next live hangout, which will be tomorrow morning. So thank you very much, everyone, for coming along. I've enjoyed chatting with you as always. So happy language learning.